The Oklahoma City Thunder might have had the blueprint to beat the Dallas Mavericks and your mailbag questions.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for InsideTheThunder.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, the Timberwolves go down 3-0 to the Dallas Mavericks. What that means for OKC, plus your mailbag questions. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode, including on YouTube. Well, the Minnesota Timberwolves go down 3-0 to the Dallas Mavericks. And when you look at this series, it should not, make the Thunder at all complacent, but it should also shed light on the last series. OKC took the Mavericks to 6 games with a point differential of 0. Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington simply beat the Thunder. You tip your cap to those guys every single time if they're going to shoot like that, if they're going to play like that. But the Thunder were in every bit athletic enough to defend the heck out of Luka and Kyrie. Kyrie admitted that he had a tough time scoring in OKC, and it was the most challenging series he's ever played. That's the blueprint. Now, the Thunder got burned. You got burned, and you're going to get burned every time that PJ and DJJ shoot like that. But how often will they shoot like that? So when you look at that series, right, and I think that this is funny when you compare it to Minnesota and when you compare it to the Clippers. But the blueprint was put all of your resources on Kyrie and Luka. Kyrie never had a scoring threat game. Luka was Luka a couple times in that series, but ultimately, you kept him in check for as much as you can keep Luka in check. As I said before the series, there is no stopping Luka. You were able to stop Brandon Ingram and just completely take him out of the series. You're not ever going to do that to Luka Doncic, ever in his career. Ever going to do that to him. I don't even care how old he gets. I think that you're going to always have having Luka games because I think his game will age very well. But you're never going to take out Luka Doncic. You were able to take out Kyrie. Kyrie was not a scoring threat. Now, he did impact the game in other ways. He was a heck of a leader in that locker room. He was a fantastic facilitator, and he played really good defense. But he did not score the ball, and he was not a scoring threat. And you've seen how he's shaken loose against Minnesota, who people were, of course, crowning defensively. And so it came down to PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. going off. Meanwhile, the Thunder had a complete no-show from J-Dub for the majority of the series. The majority of the series, J-Dub was not good. The Thunder had their complementary pieces not shoot the ball well and pass up chances. The Thunder still have not maximized Chet Holmgren. The Thunder still had a Josh Giddey issue where he was starting for over half the series, and he just was not a good matchup for Dallas. And everyone knew, including Josh Giddey, that he was not a good matchup against the Dallas Mavericks. The Thunder are still developing, and the Thunder still have a mountain of assets. But when you look back on that series, you cannot get any bigger than Minnesota. Top to bottom on that roster is as big as you can be. So for all the criticisms of had the Thunder just gotten a big man at the deadline, they would have beat Dallas. On a certain degree, there were moments in that series where you could have used a rebound, but also you cannot get bigger than Minnesota, and Minnesota cannot guard Dallas. They just cannot do it. It went from OKC had a disappointing loss, and they're the worst one seed of all time, to Luka and Kyrie are the best backcourt ever. They were not being called the best backcourt ever constructed last series because the Thunder were small enough and athletic enough to go defend them. And now you look at it, and what are people saying today? On May 27th, in the year of our Lord 2024, they're saying that the Minnesota Timberwolves should go small. They're saying the Minnesota Timberwolves should have gone small earlier. And they're coming to realize that the way to beat Dallas is negate Luka as much as possible, take away Kyrie as much as possible, and just see if Derrick Jones Jr. or PJ Washington or someone else can have a massive three-point shooting game. Ding, ding, ding. That was the Thunder's entire plan. And it worked, save for miraculous three-point shooting games from PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. And you've got to tip your cap to those guys. They came through. They stepped up in a big way. They have what it takes. They have the it factor in that series. But you live with that. Because how many more times, if we go restart that series, are you going to see PJ and DJJ shoot like that? Now, they'll impact the game in another way. They'll impact the game in their own right. But they're not going to shoot like that over and over and over again, series upon series upon series. You just so happen to run into the couple series where they do. And this is not to take away from Dallas. It's to say that Dallas is so good that the only pathway you have to success is the pathway OKC took. And OKC would have found success had OKC not had some of their very worst shooting outputs at the very same time that Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ have some of their very best shooting outputs. So it's interesting to look back on now because a lot of you were like worried that this was the last ever Thunder run. This was their one chance. And oh my gosh, they blew it. Oh my gosh, what a missed opportunity. The Dallas Mavericks are awesome. They've been one of the best teams in basketball since the trade deadline. And you had a roster perfectly constructed with the way that you could throw out, Lou and Kaysen and Wiggins and all these guys, J-Dub, and all these guys on down the list of defenders that you could throw at Luka and Kyrie. You had the blueprint. You got burned. That's all there is to it. Now, by that same token, right, the Thunder absolutely had the plan. And I think that it's the plan you have to take every single time. The Celtics are going to have to take the same plan in the finals. The Celtics have to put Jrue Holiday and have to put all their attention on Luka and Kyrie. And if they get torched in the corners by PJ and DJJ, it is what it is. But that's the plan. But by that same token, you cannot, let that series in retrospect now make you complacent, right? You still have to go improve this roster. There are still ways to elevate this roster and tie this rotation together and lift the Thunder over the hump, right, with roster construction. But it's very clear watching this Minnesota series, it's not as dire. It's not as dire as you thought. And even just watching the way that this Minnesota team composes themselves, I think, is interesting against Dallas's defense. So I don't want this to be misconstrued. Minnesota had no problems in the biggest moments against the defending champions in Denver. Whenever they lost, whenever they won in 7 and went in Denver, won some massive games. I'm just saying that Dallas's specific kind of defense, where we mentioned how they play on a string, how they play physical, how they play aggressive, it's having the similar results against Minnesota, who at times are kind of sorts, who at times are passing up opportunities, who at times are throwing the ball away. Like, give credit to Dallas for their fantastic defense that they've played all postseason long. And really, again, since the trade deadline. But I just don't think the Thunder are as far away as some of you might have felt a week ago. You just were the victim of horrendous shooting variance. And that will happen at times in the postseason. And the Thunder just could not overcome it. But again, that series went 6 games with a 0-point differential. For as bad as the Thunder played, couldn't get a rebound, couldn't shoot the ball well for the majority of the series. For as bad as they played, J-Dub was a no-show. The Josh Giddey stuff was a 0-point differential. And you took them 6 games, and you were within a foul on PJ Washington to taking it 7 to being on your home floor as the youngest number 1 seed of all time, as the youngest team to ever win a playoff series, I should say, sweeping New Orleans. Like, they're right there. And I really do believe that this Thunder team will be playing basketball on Memorial Day. Memorial Day serves as a benchmark, of course, for all of the brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice and reflection for that. But in sports, it serves as a benchmark for elite basketball teams. And the first time you check out the MLB standings, elite basketball teams play on Memorial Day. The Thunder will be doing so. They'll still be playing basketball this time next year, I believe. That's how close they are. Like, I would already project the Thunder will be in the conference finals. Between their intern development and what we assume that will happen this offseason. We'll talk about that coming up on today's show. But first, let's hear right now, but good friends over at eBay Motors. Check out eBay Motors. Go there right now because they understand that passion, drive, and patience, that's the formula for winning a championship and also one to keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, to level up to peak performances, and check out your superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. So no matter if you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from, your number one ride or die. Check it out today at eBay Motors with the eBay's Guaranteed Fit. It's your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time the first time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, they understand that you're going to be burning rubber, not cash, and they want you to keep your ride or die alive. With eligible items only, exclusions apply. ebaymotors.com, only available to U.S. customers. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Let's go into your mailbag questions. Remote Worker says, do you think Sam Presti will continue to be patient this rebuild or make a lot of noise this offseason? And if that's the case, do you see the Thunder potentially regressing next season since the Thunder will not be surprising anyone? Very loaded topic. Let's get into it. So as far as this offseason, it can truly go either way. Like, I would not be shocked this summer if the Thunder were out there and make a massive splash. The only thing that would shock me is if Thunder fans are not feeling really good heading into next year. Now, I don't know what level of improvements that'll be, but I think that this summer they're going to do something that makes you feel good, makes you feel confident in this team even more so than you do today. Now, that could be a massive splash. That could be putting a bow in their rotation, whatever that looks like. Who knows? But they're going to do something. They have to spend to the salary cap floor, so one way or the other. I think that this Thunder team will be under a microscope, obviously. You got so close to the Western Conference Finals. You're a young team. Now, as we talked about before, the expectation shift. These last few years, you've been hearing the term house money. You're not going to hear that anymore. This is no longer house money. This is the opening of your stretch where you've really got to nail your transactions. You've really got to nail your opportunities. And you've got to go try to win every single year. That's the bottom line. So when you look at this team this offseason, I think that they're going to do something to improve their roster. And it could look like, a shoring up the front court. It could look like a massive splash. That's kind of the leverage point that the Thunder have. They can do either one. And we just kind of have to sit back and see which way it goes. But they're going to do something. Now, as far as, the regular season win total and being a surprise, I don't think it had anything to do with the Thunder being a surprise team. I don't think that the reason why they won 57 games was by lucking their way there because no one took them seriously. I think what happened was the Thunder are a really, really, really talented basketball team. They're a really good team. And they took the regular season more seriously than everybody else. And they had supreme injury luck. And if they get that same formula again, they're going to win a lot of games again. Right? So here's the deal. I don't believe that they got any of their wins because they surprised somebody. I think that they got their wins because they took the regular season more seriously. I still bank on this team at their stage in their career taking the regular season more seriously than other teams. However, will it hit 57 wins, 58 wins, whatever again? That is ultimately due to injury luck and how you manage your guys. And I think that might change a little bit. For example, Chet played all 82 games. That's great. That's a fantastic story for a guy who's been knocked so much for his frame and everything else to play 82 games after missing an entire season. That's great. There were also moments in this season where he was completely gassed, and he just looked gassed and it was not as effective as he was at other points. Next season, After you've proven what you had needed to prove with 82 games, next season, does Chet, listen to the organization whenever they want him to, take a spell? Knowing that the end goal for this team is not the regular season. Knowing that the end goal for this team from now on, for as long as it scores together, the ultimate thing that matters is the playoffs. Now, they're still going to take the regular season seriously. They're still going to use it to build themselves up. They're still going to use it to of course, stack days and develop and everything else. But the ultimate way that they're judged is the postseason from now on. So do you have Chet, take a spell every now and then whenever he is gassed, as he was this season? Right? And seedings in general, don't matter as much as they used to. Just from the recent history of these teams. We see Mavericks are 5 seed and so on and so forth. Last year, of course, the Heat, whatever. The seeding stuff isn't as big of a deal, though. When you have a home court advantage like the Paycom Center, you want to get, of course, a top 4 seed. So it comes down to injury luck for me. I don't think there's any indication that the Thunder would not have as good of a record next year if they're healthy. Now, other teams are going to get better, right? Memphis is immediately going to be a contender again. If they stay healthy, of course, if they have Ja back and everything else. I think that Houston will get better. How much better can Houston get? Of course, I think that this will all balance out. I think that, again, the trepidation from Thunder fans is a bit silly because, I think that the Thunder have solidified themselves as one of these staple teams that's not going to go away. So, whenever we talk about Memphis immediately launching themselves back into contention. Someone's got to fall out. I don't think it's going to be the Thunder. And I don't think the Thunder surprised anyone. So, will it be exactly 57 games or will it be 55 or 54? Who knows? Ultimately, the Thunder will still be well regarded next year as one of the true contenders. And so that's kind of what you look at. Josh says, is Lauri a real option considering his contract status? Who or what are the best offseason targets for OKC? You can make an argument for Lauri. You can make an argument that OKC should go out there and get one of those type of contracts right now. Because a contract like Lauri Markkenan's would, perfectly fall off the books right before extensions for Shai, J-Dub, and Chet kick in. And you can then walk this tightrope, thread this needle of doing both, of bolstering your roster in the next couple of seasons and, maximizing your cap space that you have available to you while also not, damaging your future. Do I think that they'll do this? The safe bet would be that they just play it safe. But I also wouldn't completely rule it out of just going and getting a big contract, not specifically Lauri. As for Lauri, on paper, he for sure works great. If this is NBA 2K and you control him and you don't have to worry about personalities and touches and everything else, for sure this is a perfect fit. I would wonder, and this would be part of the due diligence that the Thunder have to do if they were going to make a move like this. Can you put the toothpaste back in the tube? Now that you've seen Lauri thrive as a go-to guy, he'll move down that totem pole in OKC. Can you put the toothpaste back in the tube? We've seen Lauri as a third, fourth option, and it did not look anywhere near as good as what it looks like in Utah. He's also not the same player as he was whenever he was the third or fourth option. But that would be one point of whoa, could this actually end up coming together? But I think that, you would bet against the Thunder going and making a move like that, just in the sense of the smart money in Vegas would be on no, because in every case, every single team, they're more likely not to do something huge than they are, because ultimately there's only a few huge moves to make every single year. But I certainly would not rule it out that the Thunder can make a massive move, whether it's Lauri or somebody else. But Font wants to know who are some under the radar free agent candidates for the Thunder to look at. Everyone throws out the same names, but Sam Presti never listens to us, so no way that they sign any of those players. Sam Presti does not listen to myself either, I don't think. But some under the radar names, I really like Chris Dunn. I really like Tyus Jones. And then I like Derrick Jones Jr. I mean, you saw that Derrick Jones Jr. He can have the shot variant stuff because he's so confident in himself and he's willing to take the shot. That was part of the Thunder's growing period. I think is that like the Thunder's guys like Derrick Jones Jr. like PJ Washington, they passed up opportunities. And those two did not pass up any opportunities, and they gave themselves a chance for the ball to go in, and the ball went in. And so, having that confidence aspect of it, plus his defense. Imagine his defense, how great it is in Dallas, and how awesome the Dallas Mavericks defense is. It'd be similar in OKC, only with even heightened defense. Like his defense would be awesome. The Thunder, for a long time, were overly athletic and couldn't shoot enough. Now they kind of need some athleticism a little bit on their roster. He'd fill that hole too. So I think that he'd be an interesting option. And we've seen that Dallas, look at the last time that they built the title contender, they let some of their key pieces get away. Although that was just obviously a completely different time. There was the lockout and all that stuff. So and their star was at a different point in his career in Dirk versus where Luka's at in his career. But still, DJJ would be an interesting guy that I don't think that people have talked about that much. Chris Dunn and Tyus Jones. We'll talk now, coming up, about KD, your favorite target, KD, and Isaiah Hartenstein, plus give you a look ahead at what's ahead for the show coming up this week. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast and the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Mort says, is KD really an option for OKC? Would he even fit? Well, let's answer the first question first. The second question first. Yes, KD would absolutely fit in OKC. The defense that he played last year, surrounded by the Thunder's defense, would be awesome. Like that would really just allow the Thunder to get the best of both worlds, where you're not going to see a significant drop off defensively. You might even see a small uptick defensively while improving your offense tremendously, because Kevin Durant can still go get you buckets. And I think that for Kevin Durant, you look at how hard his life was in Phoenix, where he was awesome this past season. And Phoenix nearly won 50 games. Look at the way that they won those 50 games, though. It was hard. It was laboring to win those games. It took everything in them to get those 50 wins. But now you would go to a situation where you wouldn't be working as hard. It wouldn't feel as dire in the regular season. But in terms of fit, he immediately addresses your shooting, your scoring concerns. He immediately addresses the need for another initiator and another, bucket getter, as the Thunder missed out on in the playoffs. And he does not drop off defensively at all. You would then have a starting lineup that would be Shai, Lou, J-Dub, KD, and Chet. Yeah, that fits perfectly. It would be a fascinating story, obviously, from all the history involved, from all of the pomp and circumstances that would come with it. And the Thunder would instantly be a title favorite. They'd be a team that had championship or bust expectations on them, with a very, very, very young roster. As far as is it a real possibility? Again, your safe money in Vegas would be no, because these trades rarely happen. However, to totally dismiss it because of what's going on in Phoenix, because of what the Thunder have in terms of cap space and assets, would also be foolish. And we'll just see. We'll see if both sides want to make that work. Because it does take both sides. So we'll see what happens. But I wouldn't get too caught up in it. But there's no real harm in letting yourself dream, come May 27th. But at the same time, don't get lost in this, kind of hypothetical. Because you look at what Phoenix is saying right now, and they want to sign LeBron and they want to keep this thing going. So who knows? MK says, what would it take to get Isaiah Hartenstein to the Thunder with their cap space this summer? I think that the Thunder, in terms of free agency, would still, for as much as OKC's grown, for as much as the organization has a great reputation, for all that stuff, the Thunder would still have to overpay for a free agent. They're still going to have to really outshoot the competition, in terms of money. But I think that Hartenstein's worth it. I think that his cutting ability, his pick and roll ability, being in the dunker spot, cleaning the glass, being a post-up guy, and his defense is all worth, paying him while you have the luxury to. We talked about earlier, like this is your luxury window to spend some money before you have to pay all those guys. He can be a swing starter in case something happens where you need a spell for Chet or something throughout the season, as he was for New York this year. I really like his fit. I think the only flaw for him is that he can't space the floor, but no player's perfect. And a change of pace big man who shores up your front court rotation. Because now I think that, first of all, I don't think that people gave J. Will enough credit for his season this year. But you move a guy like J. Will to being your third guy off the bench, or you're not mandatory no matter what the matchup is big, and he looks a lot better. A lot better. And it helps him. And you play him next to Hartenstein, he looks a lot better. Look how much better he looks next to Chet Holmgren. It looks better because he's naturally going to be a more 4 than a 5. But then the modern NBA 4 is kind of a tough position for him to play either way. But nonetheless, playing next to Hartenstein would help him a lot. Playing behind Hartenstein would help him a lot. This would help your entire rotation. And you could afford to do it. It's Hartenstein, the Thunder are the favorites to sign him, but I wouldn't read too much into that stuff yet until we get actual reporting on if the Thunder are in on Hartenstein, because here's the deal with the Vegas odds. The Vegas odds are going to say that the Thunder are near top for everybody. Because the Thunder have cap space and they can't necessarily put other teams at the top who don't have cap space, who would be logistically harder to go sign those guys. It's why the Thunder are going to be put into every rumor, because the Thunder have cap space and they have a mountain of draft picks. And in this case, they need the cap space to sign Hartenstein. And they have it. But I also do think that Hartenstein would be a good fit. Now, the Thunder are sniffing around on that. I don't know. But I think that he'd be a good fit for OKC off the bench. Who are some of your favorite targets to get to in the 2024 offseason, whether it's draft or free agency? Let me know in the YouTube comments down below on Locked On Thunder's YouTube channel, or let me know on Twitter at Rylan_style. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. Every single day, we're talking Thunder basketball. Here's what's going on this week. Tuesday's episode will be Stock Watch. And we're going to wrap up some mailbag questions because there's still about 4 more that I have not got to. If you still have questions, drop them below in the comment section. Drop them below on Twitter. But we're going to wrap up the mailbag questions and have Stock Watch, where we go through the entire roster and say if their stock is trending up or down. Wednesday, we're going to recap Sam Presti's press conference, which is always sure to breed a ton of talking points and debate points and things like that. Thursday, we're going to start our annual draft profile and projection series. We're going to begin it with Flip after request in the YouTube comments for Flip. Friday, we're going to do his Duke teammate draft profile on Jared McCain. Monday, kicking off next week, we'll be talking to Mavs draft for our weekly installment to talk to the draft expert to discuss the 2024 NBA draft. So that's a lot to look forward to. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Thunder anywhere you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.